People may be able to see, but we are checking for live, and it takes a few seconds for things to propagate through servers and get onto YouTube. So I've got another page up and running, and that will let me know when I can introduce myself and hopefully have a few people ready to go. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Kevin Quigley. I am the director of the Thetford Chamber Singers. We're a community chorus in central Vermont. Most of the people that might be tuning in to watch, I am certain already know who we are. A few people might know me or one of our singers and may not be familiar with us, but we're super glad to have you here, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Since it's going to take our audience a few minutes to build, unlike a normal choral concert, if we were live, we would come out with an opener and just start, right? But I think I'm going to talk a little bit, and because I like talking so much, I'm wondering if I'm going to want to start my concerts by coming out early, just for the people that are already seated, so that we can talk or take questions. I don't know, but I kind of like it. So I thought I would take this moment to talk a little bit about process. What has happened and what's happened to live performing arts, right? So how many people have been able to see a live show in the past, year and a half? Almost no one, right? A few states are open that way. Vermont is very careful and particular. So as things were hitting and boiling and steepening up, we were keeping a very close eye on that around the turn of the year from 2019 into 2020. And then by the time we hit March, I think it was in early March, we had reached the decision that singing together in an enclosed space with the viral load and possibility of contamination and spreading COVID was a little bit too present. So we stopped rehearsing, like most choruses in our area. And if you don't know, the upper valley of Vermont and New Hampshire, it's this place right around Hanover, New Hampshire, with lots of little towns and cities and communities in it, has a lot of singing going on. There's like 9 relatively large community choruses in our little area, and we are one of them. Most groups stopped doing rehearsals at that point. But at that point, we didn't know if we had a few months to wait through or if we had longer. We had no idea. We were all hoping that this might be a relatively quick thing. And then as it became clear that this was going to take quite some time, all of us started to consider, and different choruses chose different options. Thetford Chamber Singers chose to go virtual. Part of the way we made that decision was it was still pretty cold. So the idea of doing like in-car live singing with radio devices and whatnot was less attractive to us. And we checked in with the people within the chorus, and we found that we thought we really had the amount of technical skills for audio and video editing and recording and all of that, that we could make a go at a virtual performance. So what you're going to see tonight is not live. The singers are watching right now rather than performing. And we did our performances months ago, individually, alone. So how does that work? The next question that we asked once we discovered, oh yeah, we do have enough technical expertise within the organization that we think we can pull this off. We asked all of our singers, which at that time was about 36 individuals. We wanted to know, are you interested in stepping in and doing virtual stuff? It is not the same as doing live performances. We're not going to have live performances. You're actually going to be working on your own and singing on your own. That's going to feel different. And we had just over half of us ready to jump in and make that happen. Then the next question is, do you have the equipment you will need, right? So as the weeks went on, it took us maybe 2 months to really make the determination that yes, we can make a run at this and really see if this makes sense. Step after that was to choose repertoire. So when I do programming, I am always thinking about what's going on in the world today, as well as our local community, and what do we need to hear. What are the statements and the things that need to be said, the questions that need to be asked, especially in this program. I'll get to that in a minute. And I generally, what I do, my style is I gather way more songs than we need. So I went through the last, I would say, 8 years of Thetford Chamber Singers repertoire, as well as including lots of the songs that we were going to sing in May of 2020. I put a huge list together, and then I started culling. So I start pulling things away. Some of the reasons you pull things away are, oh, there's a big tempo change in that one, or there's too many high notes in this one, or we've got key changes that are difficult, right? So since people are going to be singing alone, and they won't be hearing each other, some of those things where I was able to pull them, right? I got myself down to 18 songs. I put a spreadsheet together, and we had all of the participating singers come in and vote which are the songs that really meant something to them and that they felt confident that they could do. And that brought us down to roughly 12 selections that would work. Knowing that we were aiming for a virtual concert like this, we wanted to keep it relatively short. So I whittled that back down to 6 by the time we started recording. So I figured out who wanted to sing in which piece, and we had really lovely ensembles that were choosing those particular songs. We sent those out to everyone and made sure that everybody knew which songs they were going to be singing. So you'll see a mix of faces from piece to piece. Some of the ensembles are relatively large and some are smaller. Then Matt and I, our fabulous accompanist, Matt Wiencke, we got together with a few backstage helpers, and we set up a relatively complex recording situation where we had 2 cameras capturing Matt playing piano. We had 1 camera capturing me recording my conducting. And then we had a couple of others to get good audio of both of these recordings. So we recorded me conducting, Matt playing, and good sound. And then what I did with that over the next couple of weeks is I sang all of the parts, all soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, all 4 parts for all 6 songs. And I made parts recording videos for all of my singers, so that when they were at home practicing, they could click on the link to the alto part, say, for example, for our first piece, and they could see me conduct it, they could hear Matt play it, and they could see me on the audio sing just their part. These will never be released because there are a couple of cases where, for instance, I actually had to use an auto tune to get me way up into the high soprano range, and it sounds hideous. Sopranos, I have no idea how you were able to tolerate that computerized Mickey Mouse voice, but that was the next part of the process. And then the singers started to practice, and they were practicing at home for the most part. And every couple of weeks, we'd have a great big Zoom meeting where everyone was invited in, and they could ask questions like, did you mean this cutoff to happen really at this place? And if I made a mistake in the conducting, we'd fix it. Everyone would take the note and it would be adjusted, or, and all of that sort of stuff. So those were super useful, and they gave us a nice sense of community as we were doing this work. We were working together, even if we weren't coming in to sing together. Don't worry, I'm being super quick. Then the singers, once they felt they were ready, they would record themselves, mostly on iPhones or Androids, and they'd send them in to our production team. So at this point, we had 4 people working on the production team technically. We had 1 person doing sound. You'll see them all in the credits, but I really want, and I'll mention them just in a quick second when I say my thanks. We had 3 people doing video, and we were organizing these pieces so that nobody had too much of a giant bite to take off, but it worked pretty well. And it took several months of us working. You got to get each video lined up. You got to get the audio lined up, lots of kinds of editing and snipping and all of that. And then there's the creative work. It doesn't, like, let's actually make it look good as well as sound good. Then the video and the mastered audio were put together, rendered a final piece, and then we have an actual finished piece. So the finished pieces were coming in one by one, and we'd let all the singers see them when we were ready. So those were really exciting little milestones as we went through this process. I did some math. It's not scientific, but I estimate that with the amount of times a song had to be sung when we were making our master recordings, when I was singing the parts, when each of the singers was practicing for themselves, how many times, I just figure out an average for that, then how many times it takes to make your final submission. Sometimes you sing that thing 6 times because you made a mistake here, you made a mistake there, and then we put it together in the audio and yada, 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 and all of that. And I estimate that each of the 6 songs that you're going to see tonight were sung a minimum of 300 times in order to make this project a real thing. Editing is done, and then we have to climb the mountain of figuring out how to work with StreamYard and YouTube and get everything working together so we can do the video live that you're watching now. So it's taken about, I think, about 8 months to really get all of this stuff together. Really takes a lot of work to get it together and make it feel like a show. But we're super glad you're here with us. We are super glad to be presenting. So I want to thank my producers, Stephen Dunn, Pat Autillio, myself, and Leah Romano for doing a lot of work. I want to thank Matt for going way far out of his way to get recordings done and help for us. I want to thank all of the speakers that we have in between each song to talk a little bit. We'll give you some behind the scenes information. I want to thank the software makers. This is all software we purchased, no donations, of course, but we couldn't do this without them. So Adobe Creative Cloud, Uniconverter converts formats from one video type to another video type, or audio type to another audio type. StreamYard itself, and YouTube. Without those 4 pieces of software, this wouldn't be here. So thank you for those. We're so glad that those are there. I want to thank all the singers for doing all of the work. It is an ego-busting thing to be watching yourself singing alone and say, that's the one I'm going to submit, right? So thank you for that courage. Thanks to the First Congregational Church of Thetford Hill for the use of their space and making all the piano-oriented recording parts of things. And we want to thank the Choral Arts Foundation of the Upper Valley. There's this beautiful, amazing organization whose only mission is to support the choral groups that are working in this area, and they do amazing stuff. In early June, we've got a show coming up with them. One of our pieces has been submitted, and all of the other choruses of the area have submitted work, and it's going to be great. Super excited for that. Then I want to thank the audience. I want to thank you for coming in and joining us here. I'm checking my notes. All right, so the theme for this program is the return of the light. This was lots of stuff from our canceled 2020 May concert is going to show up in here, and I've kept a little bit of the theme, and we've added a few pieces as well. So that was about I put the program together before our most recent presidential election, and we did not know which direction that was going to go. So I was choosing lots of songs about light and dealing with dark times and light times. And now, just as we're edging out, it appears, of the main scare, the need for isolation and quarantine for COVID, Return of the Light seems just as appropriate now as it did then. So our first song is Paul David Thomas's Lux in Tenebris Lucet, the light that shines in the darkness. We start in Latin, and then the song also includes all of the English translation, which I just read to you. We will follow that light through the darkness. It has a nice, exciting beginning. It goes through quite a number of different cool sections, and then brings it all the way back around for a high-speed ending as well. So we hope you enjoy Lux in Tenebris.
Lux in tenebris, lux in tenebris, lucet, lucet. Lux in tenebris, lux in tenebris, lucet, lucet. Lucem, lucem sequior. Lucem, lucem sequior. We will follow the light, we will follow the light that shines in the darkness. Lux in tenebris, lux in tenebris, lucet, lucet. Lux in tenebris. lux in tenebris, lux in tenebris, lucet, 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 lucet sequior, lucet, lucet sequior. We will follow the light, we will follow the light that shines in the dark. Lucet, lucet, let your light shine. Lucem, lucem sequior, lucem, lucem sequior. We will follow the light, we will follow the light, we will follow the light, we will follow the light.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I am here with Mandy Hoggard. She's one of our newest singers. She sings in the soprano section and has been with us for, is it one season or was it two at this point? I'm trying to remember.
Just one season.
One season, right? So I thought as our first guest, it would be kind of interesting maybe to ask and see what's it like stepping into a chorus, like a new chorus. And what can you tell us about TCS that way? What were your impressions over that year and whatnot?
Yeah, so my season that I participated in was the 2019-2020 season, so fall of 2019. And Kevin invited me to join after we sung together in a choir that summer at the Estonian National Song Festival.
Yeah.
And since we had some great Estonian pieces that fall, he invited me to come participate in that. And I immediately jumped at the chance. I thought it sounded really fun. And I didn't regret it. Wednesday evenings with TCS quickly became a highlight of my week.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely. As a mom of a young kid working full time, life can get pretty crazy, but it was a time for me to just relax and focus on the music. And the group was extremely welcoming and energetic. And I loved the songs that we sang, and I loved Kevin's approach. So it quickly became a really important and happy part of my life.
Oh, that's so great to hear. Yeah, I added some Veljo Tormas, an Estonian composer that I got to know in the previous year, in part because I was like, oh, I think Mandy's interested, and we'll have a native speaker in the group that can help us with the language. And boy, did I love doing those things. They were so fun.
They were very fun and beautiful pieces.
And it looks like maybe towards the fall, we may actually be able to sing again. And now I know you've just had another little one, so you may or may not have the time to come sing with us, but we are going to pester you about returning.
Yeah.
So our second piece is entitled with a question: can we sing the darkness into light? This one, as soon as I heard it, I knew it was sort of one of the pieces that felt like it was written for Thetford chamber singers. It's pretty direct and straightforward in terms of its musicality and whatnot. I'm sure people are going to like this one, but that question can be asked in lots of different ways. One of them is, can we do this? Come on, will you jump on and help? Right? So that's one piece of it. Another is, can we actually do this? Is it possible? And this was programmed for the spring season, which would have followed the most recent election. right? So it felt really important to me. And we're not too far behind that now, but this idea of, can we make the world a better place? And I think one of those things is, yes, we can, especially when we get together and create loving harmony and sing together. So here we go. Can we sing the darkness into light?
What if instead of more violence, we let our weapons fall silent? No more revenge or retribution, no more war or persecution. It could be beautiful. It could be beautiful. It could be beautiful. It could be What if instead of our judgment, we soften our hearts that have hardened? Instead of certainty and pride, we love and sacrifice. It could be beautiful.
All right, welcome back. I am being joined right now by Patricia Norton. She's the director of the Juneberry Ensemble. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's a delight to be here. Judeberry is an ensemble that I started from running a choral singing school and opening up space for people who wanted to sing with ensembles but weren't sure they had the skills or the know-how, and were looking for a way in. And I was fortunate to be able to start this choral group, and it's grown rapidly, and it's a wonderful group of people to work with, very welcoming and warm.
Yeah, I've been to, I want to say 4 or 5 of your performances at this point, and they have all been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really
Thank
love
you.
what you're doing. The positivity, the repertoire, like everything about your ensemble is awesome. It's
Thank you.
a great addition to this community. And if anybody out there is looking to sing, take a look up Juneberry, because that's an ensemble I actually highly encourage people to jump into. Yeah. In addition
And we
to
should be starting up again.
oh, good. Yeah, soon.
Yeah.
So we were going to ask you a question about, sort of as a director, what's it like coming to a Thetford Chamber Singers performance? What are the things that you notice, and what might be different or similar or whatever?
Yeah, so I also have been to several of your performances. I haven't been able to make every one, but I've made many of the concerts. And I look forward to them because your group is willing to jump in and try different things. You're willing to try unusual music. You're willing to bring us to hear things from different perspectives. And I love the energy that your singers bring to that, and their willingness to take chances, to take risks, and go with it. There's a particular, there's a particular willingness to take risks that is just beautiful, and it brings this high energy to the performances. I like that.
Oh, thanks
I
so much.
enjoy
That's
that.
such a high compliment for me, because yes, I do. I think I remember hearing Bobby McFerrin say once in an interview quite a few years ago, when he was asked about like being perfect or the pressure to be perfect on stage. And his response was, I don't think I've ever had a performance where I haven't made a mistake. And that, yeah, so that really inspired me to like sort of try to live on the edge of that always.
I've been really fortunate these past 5 years to be able to study with Bobby McFerrin in the
Yeah.
summers, and for a week in the summers. And he also has told stories about going out and doing the thing that scares him most first.
Mm.
It's one of the ways that he approaches his performance. You know, he goes out and he says, "All we're doing is singing." That's another thing that he says. All we're doing here is singing. Let's just keep it in perspective.
Yeah,
And singing is beautiful, and it is all we're doing. It's a beautiful big thing to be doing.
but yeah, it's low stakes, right? It's safer than people think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And oftentimes those mistakes, especially when you're trying something challenging, I think lead an audience to just love you more, right? Because when you see someone really put themselves out there and try something, and maybe it doesn't go perfectly, but they did it anyway, it's a really human gesture.
And I've often left your concerts with my program marked up with little stars of I want to go follow up. I want to hear more of this composer. I want to hear more music. More. I want to go listen to this piece again, and hear it again. Because of course, with a concert, it's a one-off usually. Now with virtual concerts, we have a different option because you can go back and listen to something again.
Right.
But usually it's a one-off thing. And in a concert program, I find myself saying, "Here's a trail I want. Here's a rabbit hole I want to dive into, to hear more of how this composer approaches the world."
Yeah. Yeah. So that it's making me want to segue into our next piece, which is Amor, Vincit, Omnia, Love Conquers All by Philip E. Silvey. And the thing that's really jumping into my mind is when we were deciding which pieces we were going to do for a virtual concert, I actually ruled out most of the super difficult ones, things with crazy tempo changes and key
As you should, yeah.
yeah, because recording is hard, especially when individual singers are recording, not hearing anyone but themselves, right? So this falls into that. It's pleasant, it's nice, but things went so well. I'm so pleased with the pieces that we've gotten together that I
Mhm.
did include a couple that have got some crazy tempo changes and stuff like that. So you'll hear, especially our closer. I did not, I was not 100% confident that we'd pull it off, and we really did. So I'm really pleased with
But
that.
Philip Sylvie is an arranger, a composer and arranger whom I really respect because he has an enormous skill of finding the one unusual thing that's going to make a piece pop, that's going to make something really special happen in this piece. And it doesn't have to be difficult for it to be really special, right?
Yeah.
And I think that in that way, he's a very rewarding composer to sing.
I agree. I've included him more than a few times in the past few years. And this particular piece, going along with our theme, which is about the return of the light, it starts with the image of a sunrise, right? And then into that. And then he's such a great architect of form that he,
Yes.
of course, closes with the image of the sun setting, right? So
Beautiful.
this is Amor, Vincit, Omnia.
I look forward to it.
When dawn approaches in the east, the morning sun will rise and fill the earth with its warmth, shining down from heaven's skies. Such a gift from above. Let each day be giving love. Amor, Vincit, Omnia. Amor, Vincit, Omnia. Amor, Vincit, Omnia. And when the sun slowly sets, you come to life once more, remembering the day our hearts touched as the rain began to pour. You're a gift from above. Let each day end in love. Amor, Vincit, Omnia. Amor, Vincit,
Hi, so now we are joined by Matthew Wiencke, our much loved accompanist. Um, choral accompanists are rare and amazing people, in my opinion. They're all of them are psychic. uh, Part of the job that they have to do is intuit and sort of predict the needs of the director of a particular rehearsal, and some of us are not so good at letting somebody know what's going to happen next or where we're going. And I'll say that I'm super blessed that Matt just sort of seems to get and understand my flow. Oftentimes I'll do things like I'll turn and realize, oh, I didn't tell him what piece is next, and he's already got it out, right? And those kinds of things. In addition, in terms of piano skill, this is all behind the scenes stuff I think some people are interested in. They've got to be great pianists, not just players in their own right, but they have to be able to listen to 40 different voices and pay attention to a conductor and sometimes other invited instrumentalists and artists in, and just get it right. They just have to get it right and pull it all together, while at the same time, since they're always the one that have been at the most rehearsals, and they've been working on the music just as every bit as much as the director. They also have to really subtly lead from the back seat, right? So if Matt, for instance, intuits or hears, oh, the altos need some help, his right index finger and middle finger, those get stronger all of a sudden, right? And the altos never know, and I never know, but he gives them the support that they need. And then sometimes, oh, the bass needs it, so his left hand's pinky and second finger become stronger, right? So those sorts of things just happen. And then the last one I'll mention, and then I'll let you talk, is that choral accompanists have to do this insane thing called reading open score. That's the term we use. So not only does he have one staff of music for his right hand and one staff of music for his left hand, he then also has 4 and sometimes up to 8 additional staves that he's got to read with different clefs for all 4 or 8 choral parts. So he's got to have all of that in his head at once. And I have to say, Matt, I'll apologize a little because I have handed you some things that I don't know many accompanists could do. And you jump in and sight read and like knock it out in such a way that rehearsal keeps going and everybody sings and doesn't even realize that you have smoke pouring out of your ears because there's so much is going on.
Right.
So I know you have you've played with a lots of different ensembles and different shows and things like that. So I'm just curious to ask you, like, what's that like, especially like switching from group to group, as well as what does Thetford Chamber Singers offer?
Sure. Thank you for that intro. You're too kind. So I've played in a lot of different types of ensembles. And I was just give a quick background. I was raised, trained in classical music for many, many years, and then branched out a bit and started doing some jazz and blues. I played in a swing band. I actually played in a country band briefly. I mean, so a lot of different stuff, musicals, and worked with individual singers quite a bit. So I think over the years, you develop a really good ear as an accompanist, because I've worked with singers since college, or actually since high school. So you get very, very in tune with what the singer's doing and almost anticipating what they're going to do next and being ready for that. And it took a lot of time to sort of develop that skill, and it's ongoing. And each genre of music, whether you're working in jazz, you're working in swing, you're doing some blues, or you're playing in a musical, they're different. They're slightly different. Classical is a little more in a rigid sense. Freedom in the classical genre is not quite the same as like if you're playing in a jazz piece. So you're shifting gears constantly. I think working with the chamber singers, like any choral ensemble, you have to listen really well to all the voices, how they're blending, the different sections, how they sound, the difference between alto and soprano, and the support that they need. Probably the biggest challenge, I think, for me coming into chamber singers is a lot of a cappella music, which I have worked with quite a bit before, but there was a lot. And so brushing up on my skills on reading score Reading 4, 5, 6 parts at once is probably the hardest thing I think an accompanist has to do, even harder than playing some tough accompaniments, because it's just your brain doesn't read, it's jumping constantly. You'd never actually, I don't think you physically read 2 lines at once. You have to flip. And so there's a lot of memorization that goes on there. So
there's moments where, just so people know kind of what happens, if you're doing 6 parts at once, it's entirely possible that the spread of notes is wider than 2 human hands can produce.
Right.
And I have noticed in rehearsals, there are moments where Matt is really clever about getting as many of the notes down as he can, and then he'll slide in and knock the other one in just a little late, but so that it's there and the singers can hear it. It's a rehearsal, right?
Right.
That's mind-blowing to me. It's amazing that it can even happen.
That's very true. That's very true. I think coming into the chamber singers, one that was the adjustment is what I learned from Kevin is the chamber singers do a wide range of music, a big range from Renaissance all the way up to modern, early 20th century, do 19th century, we do 18th century American music, and then from cultures all over the world. So music from Iceland, Eastern Europe, China, it's all over the place, and it all fits, but it's incredible. And a big emphasis on language as well. We spend a lot of time learning text, learning how to pronounce the different words and then what they mean, and getting into the meaning of the songs and the story behind them. And as an accompanist, what I've really picked up with chamber singers is to think about, the story behind each song and the words. And if we start a piece, I'll take the music home and just read the words and reflect on it and think about it, because that's going to influence how I play it and how I approach. Kevin talks a lot about getting into the performance part of singing and how you communicate to an audience with the words that you're saying, as well as the music. And that takes a certain amount of, it's all technical skill. There's also, it's emotionally challenging. And I think to jump in and play a piece well on the piano, especially a choral piece, is you have to take a leap and take some risks and put it out there. It's very vulnerable being on stage and putting all this out, and you invest something of yourself emotionally. But when you do that well and take the time and really own a piece, and with the chorus, it's pretty amazing. So, and how quickly these songs come together in the last few weeks is pretty remarkable too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So in terms of taking leaps, you've brought some Chopin. Do you have a sentence or two that you could give us to guide us into that?
Yep, sure. So this is Chopin's second ballade. He wrote 4 of them. This is a little earlier in his so-called career, but Chopin didn't live very long. So he wrote a ton of music very, very quickly. And the big theme or idea of this ballade, he was being quite experimental. The big word is contrast. So it starts with a very idyllic, serene, almost dance-like, calm, beautiful openings, very lyrical, sweet. Think of nymphs dancing or whatever image comes in your mind. And then it's an F major. And then he makes this abrupt, that sort of fades out. And there's this abrupt shift into A minor, which is not really related to F major directly. It's pretty radical to jump in the 1800s when he wrote this, to jump from F major into A minor. This crazy, chaotic other section. It's just wild. It's out of control. And I think he really enjoyed trying, seeing what would happen if you juxtapose a very calm section and then this chaotic, minor, explosive, volcanic thing. Just smack them right together and see what happens. And that has a great ending. The serene part comes back, but it's different. It's been changed. So it's a really exciting piece, and I'm really happy that I was able to share it with all of you. So thank you.
Great. So this is Chopin's Ballade number 2 in F major. Oh, that was great. All right. Thanks, Matt. So we are now here with Becky Bailey. I've actually sung with Becky Bailey in a lot of different contexts. I think first was with Thetford Chamber Singers when I came in as a singer, and you had been there singing for a few years, more at least. And I want to say I arrived with TCS in 2006. And then we've been on stage with Revels, we've been on stage together with Counterpoint and a few other things. How's this strange year gone for you? Yeah.
This year has been, I just, first of all, I can't imagine that it went on as long as it did. When I pictured it going on a few months, I thought this would be an intolerable few months. So the fact that it's been, 16 months is, but what I did to kind of keep myself going was I got involved in my local church choir and really just tried to give as much as I could to those services, to those online services. And with the partnership of the church musician who we kind of potted up together with, we've actually been able to keep making music through a year, and that's been a real godsend.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, great to hear. We just started to sing at the school, at the Waldorf school where I teach, and the kids have been so thirsty for it.
Yeah.
So the question that I thought might be interesting to ask would be something along the lines of, since I've been on stage with you in particular, both in community and professional places or venues, what's the Thetford Chamber Singers experience like, sort of in that consideration, in terms of like, what are the differences between stepping into a situation where you're getting a paycheck and a situation where you're even paying dues?
Yeah. Well, I will say that it's they've got more in common with each other than they do have differences. And while it's a paycheck, it's not like you're going to get rich from it. Gas will be covered, maybe. Maybe your meals, and maybe a few other perks. But basically, in both cases, you are in it for the joy, and it can be that joy can take a little different form depending on whether it's what kind of chorus it is. But to my mind, I'm not going to get involved in something unless there's joy in the process and throughout everything, joy and grace. And with a professional chorus, you can take a sort of certain joy in like attaining some particularly great level that you feel that you've reached, with the musical, polish or what you're able to do. And with a chorus, community chorus, you sometimes hit that as well. But there's a lot that is also just in the, seeing people develop and discover what's inside them, and then being, surprised by just wonderful things that people are able to do. That's really the kind of joy of it. And when you're making music with people that you see every day, you're creating a vibe together that, just I feel is good for the community. It's certainly good for the feeling between people.
I love that. Yeah, there's a with Thetford Chamber Singers, I always, in every single program, bring at least one thing that in my mind is the challenge piece. And more than once, we've had a situation where I've introduced the challenge piece, and then I could sort of see the shock. Are we going to be able to do this in the singers? And almost always we get there. Like, not just, the reason I'm saying almost is sometimes we get there. But more than once, we have gone so far beyond what anybody thought we would be capable of, even me, that some of the music we've produced is just astonishingly good.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things about a community chorus is, these are very musical people who care about music and love music very much. And you don't want to program down to them. You want to really give them something for their souls to engage with.
Yeah, let's make it real. So, and in that case, in terms of talking about programming, I just bumped to my computer a little. This particular piece I brought in knowing, so you have to ask the question as a director, do I have the voices that can do it, right? That can do it justice and make it their own and really sing it, right? So this one I've been wanting to bring to the group for quite a while, and then we finally had the right program to fit it into. It's called Just Because You Can, and the best recording of it that I know, I hear the voices of the soloists in it already. So I sort of knew, even though we do go through auditions and we find whoever belongs there, I sort of knew that Leah Romano and you would be the two that would sort of wind up with this one. I just could feel it. And I am delighted to offer this one for our listening. It's coming up next. Here we go.
Do ba do 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 ba do ba do do ba do 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 ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do do ba do ba do do ba do do ba do ba do do ba do ba do ba do ba do ba do just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. If it don't do nobody, don't do nobody no good. Well, you can push your luck with all your might, or give up without a fight. Unleash a firestorm of fury and wrath that's smacked on every sucker who dares cross your path. Run around town till your heart gets wrecked. Whine and complain when you get no respect. But it won't do nobody, won't do nobody no good. It's just because you should doesn't mean you can. Just because you should doesn't mean you can. Just because you should doesn't mean you can. Or if you can't make it, take a break and do the best you can. You should live by the golden rule. Stay out of trouble and stay in school. You should never make promises that you can't keep. Eat 7 vegetables a day and get 8 hours of sleep. You should face your fears and embrace your flaws. And if you ask me why, I'll tell you just because. If you can make it, take a break and do the best you can. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. If it won't do nobody, won't do nobody no good.
Right. That one was so fun to put together. When we were recording all of our pieces and stuff, Pat, who was our video engineer for everything you've seen so far, except for Matt's solo, asked, what do you want me to do about the duet and the solo and stuff? And I said, just do whatever you want. I loved the way you mixed that together and put that up.
Thank you.
Pat is one of our basses. Pat, you have been singing your entire life.
I have, although I didn't actually join in a kind of a group singing until I was about 40 years old. So.
Oh, I did not know that.
I was a latecomer, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, and you do sort of tight harmony stuff and then slide into the classical realm. Are you kicking and screaming when you move in that direction?
No. You know, I love the variety of it. When I first started singing with groups, it was barbershop music. And I enjoyed that for a number of years with small community barbershop groups and then some much more accomplished ones. Then I do love variety, and I made a jump about 10 years ago to an a cappella group that sang all kinds of things. And so in that regard, when I joined TCS 3.5 years ago only, the variety was one of the things that really attracted me. And it was, yeah, for sure, you know, different things like extended classical pieces that I had not done before, but I really loved the challenge of that.
Oh, great. Yeah. So if you're out there and you're a singer that may be looking for a chorus in the Upper Valley, one of the things that I'm very proud of this particular group is if it's out there in a genre in a way that we can learn, it really might show up in our program. We've done everything from early Renaissance stuff to all the way up through, you know, the Baroque and the classical, the modern and postmodern. We've even done some John Cage in a particular thing. And then we go all over the world. We're not afraid of any languages. We want them. We bring them in. And then we invite master musicians from both the local area and the unextended area to come in and sometimes help us out when we need a particular type of accompaniment or something like that. So yeah, if you want a broad exposure, we're a good group for that.
Yeah, I love it.
So Pat, being so much on the back end side of things, doing the technical stuff, do you have a sentence or two that you might want to use to clue us in or key us in under what that was like putting these pieces together?
Yeah, it was a real challenge because I knew a lot of the singers put so much into their individual recordings, and the onus was on Stephen, who did a lot of the audio, and myself who did the video editing, to make that come together and make it sound like an integrated piece. And it was a challenge. It was a lot of fun. I like that detail oriented stuff. It was very fiddly. It took a lot of time lining up all the videos and such. But you know, the proof is in the pudding, and it's very satisfying to see the end result. And that's what it's all about. And I know the singers generally were pretty satisfied with what we were able to do with it in the post-production.
Yeah, the group itself has been very happy. I was delighted as soon as I saw these things. One of the little details that you're talking about that I found when I was working on mine to be extremely difficult was when we're together live rehearsing, everybody just naturally synchronizes their bodies. So we breathe at the same time. We deliver our consonants for beginnings and endings of words at the same time. But when you're alone, working on, you know, in a video, that can't happen. But when you're behind the scenes working on that, you can do a little bit of magic by cutting here and cutting there and getting those things to line up and fit.
Yeah, I did. You know, I have to say, singing together in person is the way to go. This is a great stopgap and is very satisfying to see. But we're so much looking forward to being together again. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So here we go. Our next piece here is actually the Vermont State Anthem. One of my favorite things about Vermont is that we were actually not a part of the original 13 colonies. And we joined late, right? We joined after the Revolutionary War. We wanted to stay out of that. We had our own thing going on. And then we didn't have a state song forever, which was like a standard thing. And then, oh my gosh, I don't know the exact date, but I want to say it was in the mid to late 80s. Vermont had a contest. Got to be a Vermont resident and write a song, send it in. We'll think about it, right? So our Vermont song is really quite recent. It was written by a letter carrier, Diane Martin, who sent in this lovely, I want to say, jazz-inspired piece that really celebrates our state in modern language and in contemporary terms. And the version that we're doing has been arranged by Nathaniel Liu, Vermont teacher up in Burlington at St. Michael's College. So this is the Vermont state song, if you haven't heard it before, These Green Mountains.
These green hills, these silver waters are my home. They belong to me and to elders, sons and daughters. May they be saved and forever.
I gotta say, what a great state song Vermont has. It's a pleasure to sing, and it's just so beautiful. So now I'm being joined by Stephen Dunn. He is a newer singer on our group. I think you've been with us for 2 seasons now. And when we came up with the idea to do a virtual chorus, Stephen jumped right in, immediately says, I'm in, I'm on the team. And pretty much all of the things we've heard, he's done the audio mixing for. And he's really sunk his hands in elbow deep, and you've built some skills there.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And Stephen he's a rare case, is in that he came to us. I got an email from him a few years ago saying, moving into the area, and I want to sing. I'm looking for a place to sing. I've looked around, and I'm told that your group is the one that's the right one for me. We've got a lot of groups, good choruses in the Upper Valley, but there's enough that people can sort of choose which chorus fits their personality, right? And you came in for a rehearsal, and I knew right away. And oftentimes I can tell, and sometimes I can't. But I was like, yeah, this guy belongs here. Super glad to have him. So you're now a relied upon singer in our tenor section. And here's one of my questions that I've got for you. I've got like 8 floating in my head, but the one I want to ask is, what about our culture and men singing in groups? Let's, how do we find some ways? What are your thoughts on like encouraging some men to sing?
Well, that is a very good question. I could say that you could just present them with my upbringing. I grew up in a very musical family, so and in some ways I'm an outlier, I guess, as far as typical male culture goes. But given current circumstances, I hope that this last year will kind of
We've got a bit of a frozen internet.
Rectify that problem of afraid to sing. So yeah, I was kind of worried that would happen. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Where was I?
You talked about growing up in a musical family.
Yes. I think part of the problem is that men are often afraid to sing. They feel like it showcases a part of them that they would rather remain hidden. And that was never an issue for me growing up in my family. It was just, we would sing to each other, and I've never been hesitant to express that part of myself. So I think as long as a warm and comfortable environment is presented, and it is, singers are allowed to express themselves and know that it is okay to do so, that you would find that men would be more comfortable and even excited to sing because of the emotional sort of depth and fullness it can bring to their lives. It's just sort of, there's a little bit of a barrier they have to overcome first. The fear of being made fun of, perhaps, or feeling uncomfortable or not masculine.
Yeah. So as a teacher, I found myself and in part chose to teach middle schoolers. I love working with middle schoolers. I love their cantankerousness. I love the way they wrestle with their fears of, growing and changing bodies, and all of becoming awake and aware of what the world is around them. And I teach kids to sing. So part of this idea is, how can we make this a life-affirming, healthy, and fun gesture for the boys to participate in, as well as the girls. And I've got a particular class that I'm singing with now, and they, because we have not been allowed to sing all year because of COVID, and it just opened up. And they have been, I was concerned that I would have to sort of convince them and get them excited about it, but they've been so thirsty for the ability to use their voice in exuberant and joyful ways that they're just on board. There's no fear. And this is literally the first time I've experienced that with boys of this age, that just jump in, and the girls love it, right? That they've got this partner in their group.
Well, that is good to hear, because I think that given our TCS community in particular, that it's as much a problem as attracting younger singers as it is attracting male singers.
Yes. Yeah. So that's something we're working on. Like, and if you're a new singer that's out there that's interested in jumping in, send me an email. You can visit our website, thetfordchambersingers.org, and our email link is right at the bottom. It will come straight to me personally, and I try to get back to all emails that come in about, hey, do you have space for your chorus, within a week. Usually takes me a couple of days to get around to making sure I get responses, but you'll get a response, I promise, male, female. You'll get a response regardless of your singing background, how much you've sung and how much you haven't. If we determine together that the musical skills for our group might be a little too high, I know exactly the groups to send you to that work with just that, for that is part of their mission. And then some of those singers have then come over to join us a year or two later. So we love working together, the ensembles in this area. So talking about Yang and pieces with Yang, the next one that we've got coming up is Andre J. Thomas's Fences. Soon as I came across this piece, I grabbed it, I put it in I have a folder that contains, a rolling 30 to 40 pieces of music that I know TCS needs to do. This was one of those. Several years ago, we put together what we call an outreach chorus that went all over the state, Vermont and New Hampshire, to sing. And it was a smaller group that was a little bit more dedicated to putting in a little bit more time and practice than your average singer might have available in their lives. And in this song, it talks about the divisions that we put together and between us, just in the state of developing human culture. It's received the best audience response of any performance I have ever had anywhere in my life. When we performed in Montpelier, there was, I want to say, a 13 or 14-year-old girl that was there with her family. And usually I think that these kids have been dragged there. And as the conductor, I don't get to turn around very often. But each time I turned around, she seemed enthused and applauded. And it was our show closer. And I turned around and she was not clapping. She sat with this serious look on her face and a fist raised into the air. So I talk about that. I tell that story a lot. Just listen to this song and see if you can find in it what she found in it. And then we'll run some credits so you can get to know some of the people that have been on screen and behind the scenes there, some names. We'll name all of our local sponsors. We've got lots of local businesses and regular citizens that help support the group and keep us going. We appreciate that help from everybody that is able to offer it. Thank you so much. So coming up now is Neil Lauren's Fences.
The day the universe was born, mountains rose and stars were torn from the woven cloth of time, and there were no fences. Freedom's only ours to share, and there are no fences. In photographs from far in space, Earth and ocean have their place. And there are no fences.